All right. Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. How is everyone doing? I hope you guys are well. It's good to see you. And thanks for swinging by Pastor Tanner channel here on our live stream Monday evening. What is up, Angie? What is up, Vector? Good to see you. I hope you are having a good week thus far. Happy Monday. So we're jumping in, and I am going to be preaching on John chapter 7. I haven't done my roadmap for John chapter 7 yet. If you actually look at my roadmap, I've run out. There's no more roadmap, right? You go here. Oh, that's it. It ends there. So John chapter 7, I need to figure out how to break up this pericope and just see what I want, because the whole chapter, you get into 6, you get into 7, and it's long and meandering, and there's a lot of dialogue. It's really hard to tell where, one section ends and another begins. So that's what I got to figure out first tonight. But once we figure that out, once we decide what section of John chapter 7 we're going to preach on, then we need to go ahead and start doing some exegesis and dig into the text itself. So anyway, that's the idea. That's the idea. What is up, Frankel? It's good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Hey, Pastor Tanner, a plug for Logos Libraries. I'm moving and just packed up several boxes of my biblical studies and theology books. My Logos library is easy to move. No doubt about that. That's awesome, Frankel. Well, I hope the move goes well. And you are correct. It is much easier, much easier to move your Logos library. That's one of the advantages, too. I find when I go on a trip, for example, I have pretty easy access to the entirety of my Logos library. Not so with print books. You got to decide, hey, going on this trip, what are the 2 books I'm going to read? Because otherwise I am going to be packing way too much, right? So I totally hear that. Well done, well done. All right, guys. So, man, let's just read some of John chapter 7, and we'll see if we find a natural break, and then we'll kind of look at, pericope breakdowns and how the text is broken up by some commentaries, different other ideas. It says this. After this, Jesus went about in Galilee. He would not go about in Judea.
Is not
come on.
In your
come on, Cal Magic.
hands. Your life is in the hands of God.
Yes.
Cal Magic Guy just resubbed for 37 months. Funniest line in Lectio Divina. Ignatius and his congregation were so devoted he was thought to be a hidden Lutheran.
That is awesome. Love to see it. Thank you so much, Cal Magic. 37 months. Absolutely insane support. And funniest line in Lectio Divina, Ignatius and his congregation so devoted he thought to be a hidden Lutheran. This is really funny, Cal Magic, and I appreciate that. If you guys didn't know, we posted a new video this morning. We don't often post on Monday mornings, but it just lined up that way this week. And yeah, it's a video on Lectio Divina. And so I have found Lectio Divina to be a very interesting practice, and hopefully others find that interesting as well. So thank you so much. Man, Tier 3 support as well. Cal Magic, you're insane, and I appreciate all of your support over the years. You are awesome. Vector says, who reads on trips, nerds? Well, we do. Yes, some of us read on trips. That's part of why we like to go on vacation, so we can relax and read, all right? Because we find it very difficult to do so in daily life. Don't call me a nerd. That's enough. That's enough, Vector Axe. All right, let's get going, guys. Continuing. Now, the Jews' feast of booths was at hand. So his brothers said to him, leave here and go to Judea, that your disciples also may see the works you are doing. For no one works in secret if he seeks to be known openly. If you do these things, show yourself to the world. For not even his brothers believed in him. Jesus said to them, my time has not yet come, but your time is always here. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify about it that its works are evil. You go up to the feast. I am not going up to this feast, for my time has not yet fully come. After saying this, he remained in Galilee. But after his brothers had gone up to the feast, then he went up also, not publicly, but in private. This would be interesting, right? Because he says he's not going to go, and then he goes. Reminds me of the parable of the brothers who, they're 2 sons, right? And the father says, go work in the vineyard. And the first brother says, I won't go. And then later he feels bad about it and he goes. And then the second son says, I'm going to go, but then he doesn't. And Jesus essentially says which one is justified. And of course, it's the one who said, I'm not going, but went anyway. He's pointing out that actions speak louder than words. So anyway, very interesting that in verse 8, Jesus says, I'm not going to go, and then he goes anyway. Verse 11, the Jews were looking for him at the feast and saying, where is he? And there was much muttering about him among the people. While some said, he is a good man, others said, no, he is leading the people astray. Yet for fear of the Jews, no one spoke openly of him. About the middle of the feast, Jesus went up into the temple and began teaching. The Jews therefore marveled, saying, "How is it that this man has learning when he has never studied?" So Jesus answered them, "My teaching is not mine, but his who sent me." This is Jesus teaching as one who has authority. If anyone's will is to know God's will, he will know whether the teaching is from God or whether I'm speaking on my own authority. The one who speaks on his own authority seeks his own glory, but the one who seeks the glory of him who sent him is true, and in him there is no falsehood. Has not Moses given you the law? Yet none of you keeps the law. Why do you seek to kill me? The crowd answered, "You have a demon. Who is seeking to kill you?" Jesus answered them, "I did one work, and you all marvel at it. Moses gave you circumcision, not that it is from Moses, but from the fathers, and you circumcise a man on the Sabbath. If on the Sabbath a man receives circumcision, so that the law of Moses may not be broken, are you angry with me because on the Sabbath I made a man's whole body well? Do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment." So I could see a break, maybe at like verse 10, right, where he hasn't yet shown up to the feast. And then maybe you could do like 11 to 20, something like that. Or really 11 to 24. And then 25 might be the start of a new one. Some of the people of Jerusalem therefore said, "Is not this the man whom they seek to kill? And here he is speaking openly, and they say nothing to him. Can it be that the authorities really know that this is the Christ? But we know where this man comes from. And when the Christ appears, no one will know where he comes from." So Jesus proclaimed as he taught in the temple, "You know me, and you know where I come from. But I have not come of my own accord. He who sent me is true, and him you do not know. I know him, for I come from him, and he sent me." So they were seeking to arrest him, but no one laid a hand on him because his hour had not yet come. Yet many of the people believed in him. They said, "When the Christ appears, will he do more signs than this man has done?" The Pharisees heard the crowd muttering these things about him, and the chief priests and Pharisees sent officers to arrest him. Jesus then said, "I will be with you a little longer, and then I am going to him who sent me. You will seek me, and you will not find me. Where I am, you cannot come." The Jews said to one another, "Where does this man intend to go, that we will not find him? Does he intend to go to the dispersion among the Greeks and teach the Greeks? What does he mean by saying, 'You will seek me and you will not find me, and where I am, you cannot come'?" On the last day of the feast, the great day, Jesus stood up and cried out, "If anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as the scripture has said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water." Now this he said about the Spirit, whom those who believed in him were to receive, for as yet the Spirit had not yet been given, because Jesus was not yet glorified. Okay, so it goes on. We're not going to read the rest of the chapter. Obviously, there are several points at which we could break up until now, but you can see how difficult the Gospel of John is, especially once you get into chapter 6 and beyond. It's just a lot of meandering dialogue. There's a lot of topics coming up repeatedly, one after another, and it's really hard to tie them all together. So, yeah, it's a challenge, no doubt. No doubt. Vector says, "So weird to see you in a hoodie. It's over 100 here." I don't think it gets into the 80s, like, at all. Hardly ever here, right? We're in the 70s maximum. Frankel, living water, hot fire. Yes. Yes, indeed. That's a really important passage when Jesus stands up in the middle of the feast and cries out,
Your
"Any man
life
thirst,
is
let him come
not
drink."
in
Oh, come on.
your hands. Your life is in the hands of God.
Yes. Thank you so much, Violet.
Violent Midget 300 just resubbed for 31 months.
31. Absolutely crazy. Thank you so much, Violent. Appreciate all your love and support. Thank you for being with us for so long here. You have always been consistent in supporting us, and I appreciate that so much. Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys. Well, you can see we've got a lot going on here. There are a few tools. I actually did a video on this in our videos on how you can actually utilize some tools in Logos Bible software to help you select pericopes, right? So there's a couple of things you can actually utilize to do this. And first, I'm going to go to passage analysis. Passage analysis is a way of grabbing all of the pericope sets from your translations. So if you were to read your print Bible, you were to walk through it, you know, there are headings for each section. It breaks it down. That's exactly what these are. They're just reproduced. Now, what you're looking for here in the passage analysis is you're looking for a consistent line that cuts across many different translations. So here's a perfect example. It is wise to break up this text at verse 24 according to many of the different Bible translations. The problem is, should there be a break before that? So we would totally be justified in preaching from verse 1 to verse 24, all one section. That's according to how the ESV breaks it up, for example. Or we could break it at maybe verse 5 or verses 9 and 10, like I talked about before. Right here would be a decent break. Preach 1 through 9, and then preach, 9 through 24. That would be a decent, 2-section sermon. And then you can just kind of build off of this. If this were your only resource to do this with, you could absolutely make your decisions based upon this. But I also showed in that video that there are other resources or tools that you can use to try and just get a sense of where you might want to break the text up. All right, Cal Magic says, the New Testament authors referring to the Old Testament so much is proof how important the Old Testament is really in understanding the New Testament. Yes, very, very helpful. So let's see here. And I'm going to bring up another notes document because I started a notes document for this section. I didn't do anything with it yet. I didn't even know where I was going to break it up yet. But yeah. Cal Magic says, is there a grammatical marker for the breaks in the Greek? No, not in every manuscript universally, Cal Magic. There are in some of the manuscripts. So if we were a real in-depth Bible scholar, we could bring up, Codex Sinaiticus, and we could look at some of the breaks that are present there. We could bring up Vaticanus or, some of the other ones that have those sorts of features in them. But many of the manuscripts do not. Many of the manuscripts are just blocks of uncials, capital letters, and you even have to decide like where the sentence changes are or where the words break, right? So many of those don't have that kind of information in depth for you to grasp, right? All righty. The other tool you can use, and again, I highlighted this in a video a while back. It might take me a second to find, because since I found it in that video, I don't think I've pulled it up. Let's see. Was it the Bible browser? Might have been. Man, there's just so many good. I'm getting closer. Bible Outline Browser. There's just so many good resources here. Bible Outline Browser. And in the Bible Outline Browser, you can see here, it's a similar setup with all of the different pericope blocks, but you can see here that it's referencing commentaries and outlines, not necessarily Bible translations. So if I scroll down to John 7:1, you can see breakdowns. Now, some are better than others. You can see these broad ones don't really do much. But like this one right here, the annotations on the Gospel according to St. John, I believe this might be Lenski. I'm not sure. But you can see he has a very deliberate breakdown. And he stops at verse 13. So he preaches 1 to 13. And then after that, he goes 14 to 24. So again, we can see verse 24 is a natural break. The question is, do we want to preach 24 verses in one sermon? Or do we want to preach 2 sermons and break it at verse 9 or break it at verse 13? You see what I mean? And you can look at these. Here's another one, breaks it at verse 13. This one, Bible Knowledge Commentary, breaks it at verse 9, right? So if you just scroll across, you can get a good sense on where it breaks. A lot of them don't have a lot of break. Here's one. And I highlighted this in the video. The JPCS has really heavy breaks, right? Here's 2 verses. Here's verses 3 to 5. Here's verses 6 to 8, right? So this one really dials in. You're probably not going to preach that many sermons, but if you drill up a level, maybe here or here, you can see he breaks at verse 10, and then he breaks again 11 to 29. He doesn't even break, at least at this level, at verse 24. You have to drill down a little bit further to here, it looks like, for him to break at verse 24. So again, super helpful, I think, to reference these things. This one, again, is based off commentaries, and the other one is based off of the Bible translation committees. This one breaks at 13, so that's 2 key resources that break at 13. This one breaks at 13. 3 key resources break at 13. This one breaks at 13. This one breaks at 13. So guys, it's not necessarily a democratic process where you just count the numbers of noses, but man, tons of these break at verse 13. So maybe 9 is not the best break. Okay, we have a lot of evidence for a break at verse 13. So let's double check and see what is going on in verses. So we could do 1 to 9, or we could do John 7, 1 to 13. Those are the 2 real options before us. Let's read verses 9 to 13 and see where we think they fit. After saying this, he remained in Galilee. But after his brothers had gone up to the feast, then he also went up, not publicly, but in private. The Jews were looking for him at the feast and saying, "Where is he?" And there was much muttering about him among the people. While some said he is a good man, others said no, he's leading the people astray. Yet for fear of the Jews, no one spoke openly of him. I think this is probably tied to 1-9. About the middle of the feast, Jesus went up to the temple and began teaching. The Jews therefore marveled, saying, how is it this man has learning when he has never studied? My teaching is not mine, but him who sent me. Whoever knows God's will recognizes my teaching, blah, 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 all the way down to 24. So, and even there he talks about don't judge by appearances, judge by right judgment. He means you need to be discerning and judge the doctrine, which is the topic he's been talking about since verse 13. Yet for fear of the Jews, or 14, excuse me, he began teaching. So I think that's a natural break. We're going to do 7 to 13. And then the Sunday after that, we will preach 14 to 24. So let's put that in the roadmap. 1 to 13. And then the Sunday after that, John 7, 14 to 24. Boom. At least we got the next couple weeks lined up. Okay. I gotta get ahead of schedule. It's best to be a couple months out in advance, but you can see it took a decent amount of work to figure this out. We had to reference some things. We had to read carefully, and start to try and break the text down a little bit. So it's a little bit harder to do all that work in advance, but it's valuable work, and you just got to make time to do it ahead of time. All right. Well, we've decided we are going to preach John chapter 7, verses 1 to 13. Let's go ahead and get a passage guide run. Boom. It's going. And yeah, we're ready to go. Let's start with some I want to start with some study Bibles, I think. I like the study Bibles. They can kind of give you a sense of what's being talked about. The Disciple Study Bible has it in systematic theological categories, which is pretty handy. So Jesus Christ, family, miracles, history, election, sin, Jesus Christ. So lots of different categories focused on the person, the character of Jesus Christ, which makes sense. All of the Gospel of John is tied up with this theme. But let's look a little closer. Church History Study Bible. So this Church History Study Bible is a summary of some comments. Looks like they lean Reformed. I mean, you've got Calvin, A.W. Pink, Augustine, right? So looks like these are essentially comments from reformers, collated from some of their works. Doesn't mean it's bad, right? It's just like that's kind of the direction the resource goes. Church History Study Bible. I don't think this one was available when I did my study Bible tier list, so I just haven't referenced it that much. All right, keep going. What about, let's see, the NIV Bible Speaks Today. I really like this one. It's kind of a summary of the Bible Speaks Today commentary. And they do 7, 1 to 13. They call it the Festival of Tabernacles. And a good question here at the end. What is wrong with seeking signs? What significance is there in waiting to go to the festival? Yeah, these are really good questions. And they're definitely relevant. They're worth asking, right? So this is Bible Speaks Today. NIV Bible Speaks Today. Boom. Right. Okay, good. And let's see what they say. Jesus continues ministering in Galilee because Judea has become dangerous for him. He is ready to give up life in Jerusalem, but will do so only at the right moment when his time has come. His brothers question why he remains in comparative obscurity. Their attitude reveals their obsession with miracles. Seeking signs is the enemy of real faith, since it leaves the fallen, self-centered heart untouched and unrebuked. Hence, for them any time will do to show himself to the world. They know nothing of the hatred of the world with which Jesus has to grapple. It cannot hate its own. An important background of this section is the 7-day Festival of Tabernacles, which celebrated the provision and guidance of God for his people in the wilderness, as well as the ingathering of harvest. A special feature was the water drawing and lamp lighting rite, which was performed each day in the temple. During the festival, the people gave thanks for the rainfall which nourished the harvest, but also looked forward to that coming day when God's Spirit would be poured out at the coming of the kingdom of God. There is no difficulty in reconciling Jesus' express refusal to go to the festival with his eventual attendance. Jesus must wait for the Father's guidance. My time has not yet fully come. When he does set out for the feast, he goes in secret, the opposite of what his brothers recommended. The crowds at the feast express a wide variety of views of Jesus, from the mild he is a good man to the much more adversarial he deceives the people. The sections that follow help people make that decision about him. So there's just a general sense, conversation, discussion about who is Jesus, which again is kind of the topic of the entirety of the book. So, I mean, just at the outset, I mean, man, this is I hate to say it this way, but this is kind of a tired theme in the Gospel of John. I know when you're reading the book as a whole, that's great, but if you're going to preach, 13 verse pericopes, you get to the point where it's like, man, this theme keeps coming up over and over again. Yet again, who is Jesus, right? Let's keep going. I know there's great stuff here, but we're just trying to get a sense of like what constitutes a preachable pericope. Savage, says Vector. I mean, it's true. It's true. You can only preach on that same topic so many times. Let's go. I like the Reformation heritage, but it often references the entirety of the chapter. I like the questions at the end of each chapter right here. But again, they're full chapter questions, so sometimes he's asking a question that's relevant up to verse 30. Well, I can't utilize that whole thing. The unbelief of Jesus' brothers sets forth the important lesson that we can be near the truth and yet lack true faith. It is a mercy that after Christ's resurrection, we find Christ's brothers in the company of those who believe. How is their unbelief a warning to those growing up in Christian families and churches? How is their conversion encouragement with regard to what God can do? That's a great question, and it's super relevant. Super, super relevant. So I love this one, and this is one of the reasons I reference the Reformation Heritage KJV Study Bible. Boom. Fantastic. Fantastic. All right. Christ still says through the gospel, if any man thirst, let him come to me and drink. So this is later in the text. We're not going to utilize this, but I want to read it. 75% to the rap. There's no way, Vector. I've got to delete it. I've got to delete it, man. Nobody can earn that at this point. If any man thirst, let him come to me and drink. He proclaims himself to all who hear the gospel, promising that everyone who trusts in him will receive the eternal life of God's Spirit and become a means by which the Spirit overflows to others. Sadly, many people stumble over their pride and reject him. Others depend on hearsay about Christ and fail to seek the facts that confirm his messiahship and deity. How have you responded to Christ's call to come to him? You better delete it before I redeem it. I better. There's no doubt about that. Okay? So we've got a little more direction. Now, like with this question from Reformation Heritage, KJV, I've got like I could explicitly preach on the dangers of growing up in the church. Woo! Could you imagine? Man, a lot of people would be trying to oust me for that. That redemption is legally binding. The dangers of growing up in the church. That's a proper application of what's going on here. Again, after this, Jesus went about in Galilee. He would not go about in Judea because the Jews were seeking to kill him. Now the Jews' feast of booths was at hand. So his brothers said to him, "Leave here and go to Judea, that your disciples also may see the works you are doing. For no one works in secret if he seeks to be known openly. If you do these things, show yourself to the world." For not even his brothers believed in him. Jesus said to them, "My time has not yet come, but your time is always here." What does that mean? Oh, I love Jesus' confusing statements. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify about it that its works are evil. You go up to the feast. I am not going up to this feast, for my time has not yet fully come. After saying this, he remained in Galilee. But after his brothers had gone up to the feast, then he also went up, but not publicly, but in private. For the Jews were looking him at the feast and saying, "Where is he?" And there was much muttering about him among the people. While some said, "He is a good man," others said, "No, he is leading the people astray." Yet for fear of the Jews, no one spoke openly about him. man, like there's a lot here on just like assessing. So maybe not the dangers of growing up in the church, but like assessing people's takes on Jesus, Christianity, and religion. There's a lot of hot takes here, right? Like let's look at all the hot takes. There's personal doubt from those who are close. Okay. So these are those criticizing him individually. There's hatred, but it hates me because he testifies their deeds are evil. Then, where is he? There was muttering. There's some who say he's a good man. And there's others that say leading people astray. And notice, none speak openly. These are all very interesting takes, right? All right, Cal Magic says, back in the late 70s, I read a book, The Dangers of Growing Up in a Christian Home. Loved it. Vector says, why? Why do you love it when Jesus is confusing? What do you gain from that? What I gain is I need to dig deeper, right? So when he says, which was the one I latched onto? Yeah, this phrase right here. My time has not yet come, but your time is always here. There's something going on there, right? And that's why I love it, because the very interesting takes that Jesus has cause me to dig deeper into the text. So a lot of people like the surface of the text. They just like the obvious, easy principles that are there. And I can't blame them for that. You know, it's helpful when you're trying to make sense of the world. But I think these statements from Jesus are deeper. And in that sense, to me, they're more profound, and therefore they require greater contemplation to understand, right? We talked about the Lectio Divina passage today. If I had, video, if I had chosen John 7, 1-13 for my Lectio Divina practice, you better believe I'd spend a lot of time on verse 6, trying to meditate upon that. What does he mean? Jesus said to them, my time has not yet come, but your time is always here. Man, that's interesting, right? And that's one I would spend a lot of time meditating on, trying to figure out, you know, what does that mean? My time has not yet come, but your time is always here. I'm reminded of other things Jesus said when he said, like, the poor you will always have with you, but me you only have for a short time. You know, there seem to be some similarities for me. Your time is always here. What does he mean by that? Does he mean like the world is always blinded just like you are? Is that what he's saying? My time has not yet come. So he's like, there's a future state that is going to be my time. It isn't here yet. Your time is always here, right? Like, whoa, you see what I mean? Like, there's something deeper going on in that little phrase, but I don't know what it is. And those things grab me, and I go, and I think harder about them. Cal Magic says, watched a video that was discussing why people vote for those who undermine our Constitution and bring about chaos, and I immediately thought about a man loving the darkness in spite of the presence of the light. Don't mean to be political, but I think it's important maybe with your passage. Yes, I talked on Tuesday about this in our Bible study on the topic of lust. I explicitly talked about this idea of, no, it wasn't on Tuesday. I talked about this in my sermon yesterday. That's right, Cal Magic. They love the darkness rather than the light. It's very, very relevant. Very, very relevant. All right, let's see. Okay, so anyway, that's why I like confusing stuff that Jesus says. Kairos ha, humeteros, pontate estin, het oimos. Just a very interesting phrase. Like if I had more time, I would dig all the way into that phrase. All right. So the dangers of growing up in the church. Cal Magic noted The Dangers of Growing Up in a Christian Home as an interesting book. If I had that one, I'm sure it would have some relevant ideas. Vector says, I think it means his time to do his thing hasn't yet come, but they are supposed to be doing their thing always. Yeah, what does that mean, though? I like what you're saying, Vector. But is it even a supposed to? Like, they are supposed to be doing their thing always? I don't know. Like, this seems more critical than that. It almost seems like not you're supposed to be doing your thing always, but just you are doing your thing always, right? I don't know. Ministry, you think? I don't think so. Jesus said to them, my time has not yet come. Like, read the verses before and after. Not even his brothers believed in him. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me. You see, like, it's sandwiched by two very critical phrases. Even his brothers, not even his brothers believed in him. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me. And then in the middle of that, your time is always here. I don't know. I don't think it's ministry. I don't think it's ministry. You see what I mean, Vector? You got to think hard about these weird phrases. That's why I like them. That's why I like them. All right, we've already got some good ideas now. Man, I really want to preach something like this. Dangers of growing up in the church. Man, this is tough. Let's keep going. We're finding good stuff here. So let's see. Let's try the Orthodox Study Bible. See what it has to say. So they reference a very large pericope here, 7:1 to 10:21. This section tells of our Lord's visit to Jerusalem for the Feast of Tabernacles. The entire section covers 8 days. At this festival during the last year, this is relevant to note. Like, people are going to want the historical background at very least. So we'll go Orthodox Study Bible. At this festival during the last year of his earthly life, Jesus taught in the temple and attracted a great deal of public attention. Some thought him mad, others believed him to be the Messiah, and still others, such as the Sadducees and Pharisees, considered him to be a threat. The Jews sought to kill him, the religious leaders, and the people in general. Feast of Tabernacles, Hebrew Succoth, is an 8-day autumn harvest festival commemorating the time when Israel wandered in the wilderness of Sinai and the people lived in tents or tabernacles. Along with the Passover and Pentecost, this was one of the 3 most important festivals to the ancient Jews. This is great historical background. This is what I call fun facts. People really like this stuff. It includes numerous sacrifices and celebrations. In later times, the final day of this feast also included drawing water from the pool at Siloam to be mixed with wine and poured at the foot of the altar, both as a purification and in remembrance of the water flowing from the rock that Moses struck. It further included the lighting of great lamps in the outer court of the temple. All of that's really good. Again, 2 fun facts here. If you find a way to embed these in the sermon, I mean, you'll have people come up afterwards and be like, Pastor, I really admire your study, right? Like, you're obviously so studious and so knowledgeable of the text. And it's like, bro, I read a footnote out of a single study Bible, right? Like, it's not as hard as you make it out to be. I appreciate the encouragement, I really do. But you get the right resource. People just don't know how powerful Logos Bible software is. That's all there is to it, right? Like, they think you're just like the most brilliant man ever. And it's like, bro, I used Logos Bible software. It pointed me the direction of 5 really good books, and I, collated and synthesized that information, and that the result is the sermon, right? Like, I'm sorry, I'm not as special as you think I am. That's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. So this is a reference. Yeah, I don't think I want to dive into this one. Verse 10, not openly means not with a grand public entrance as in Palm Sunday. That's helpful as well. Yeah, Orthodox Study Bible, 3 out of 4 on good hits. Yeah, really nice. All righty, let's keep going. Maybe reference a couple more study Bibles. This is Numerical Bible. What is it? What is it? What is it? So this is a longer section it grabs. Okay, here's some of what we're looking for. 7, 1, and 9. Let's see what it says. The state of the world is that which is first revealed, the Lord himself, in what complete solitude in the midst of it, without sympathy even from his human kindred, and the professing people of God only to be classed with the world, going on indeed with their feasts and empty forms of a piety which for the mass does not exist, and which have therefore become the signs of hardness and levity of heart. What a witness against them is that history of divine deliverances which their Feast of Tabernacles commemorates, while those who are especially the clusters round the holy places, then they are of Judea, are specially marked out here as those in open and deadly hostility to the Lord of life, the Son of him they worship. The Lord therefore does not go up at first or openly to the feast. He is neither Lord there, nor even welcome guest, nor is the time come for his open manifestation to the world, which hates him for his faithfulness. Thus, he abides solitary in his unique and perfect manhood among men estranged from him by his perfection. Interesting. I think this empty piety piece is interesting. And it reminds me also reference the end of chapter 7, because that's when many of his disciples leave him. And then it's in that context that his brothers are kind of mocking him and saying, oh, go out and show yourself publicly, right? So you can see the whole tone and tenor of the text is people are really questioning Jesus. They're really questioning who he is and what he came here to do, right? He's not getting a lot of support. Okay. I like this little statement. The ease with which our feasts and holidays become meaningless. And I want to reference this section, Numerical Bible, F.W. Grant. See Numerical Bible, F.W. Grant. Because that's his criticism here. His criticism is, look, you start to celebrate these things. The professing people of God so it's just an interesting section here. All right, Cal Magic says, look at the TNTC 2017 edition for John 7, 6, and 7. The Greek word for time is important for understanding the meaning. When he says, my time had not yet come. Yeah, that sounds like a very important verse. So, TNTC 2017. I'm guessing it's the Tyndale John, and the 2017 version. Hello, Quiglius. Good to see you. Welcome. So, Colin Cruz, is this a 2017 version? No, 2003. John Stott. And I could probably, this is 1988. I could probably find it better if I went to Passage Guide. Passage Guide commentaries. Because I have these prioritized pretty high. Quiglius says, good evening. I missed the first 30 minutes. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing great. Thanks for swinging by. And yeah, how are you? No problem on being late. That's the nature of live streaming, right? People come when they can. There's the 2017 version. Colin Cruz did 2 different versions. Boom. Vector, wow, poor display of having your resources easy to find. It's right here, Vector. There are many ways to skin a cat in Logos, and this is the way I found. So here it is, and Cal Magic wanted me in verses 6 and 7. Took like 3 minutes. Not a full 3 minutes. This is the section that Cal Magic wants me to reference. Jesus told them, "My time is not yet here. For you, any time will do." So this is when I was saying, very interesting verse, right? The word used for time in this verse and in 7:8 is kairos, a word found in the Gospel of John only in these verses. Normally another word, ora, is used, a word which carries heavy theological meaning and relates primarily to the time of Jesus' crucifixion and exaltation. His hour has come. That the word kairos instead of ora is used here in 7:6 and 8 suggests that Jesus was simply saying that it was not yet the right time for him to go to the festival. Perhaps he knew that in the first few days, the Jewish leaders would be expecting him and would seek to kill him. For his brothers, there were no such concerns. For them, any time will do. This approach is confirmed by Jesus' next words. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me. Because the world, here meaning the Jewish leaders hostile to Jesus, had no reason to hate his brothers, they could go to the festival anytime they liked. It was different for Jesus. He had to choose his time carefully because the world hated him and planned to kill him. The reason why it hated him, he said, was because I testify that its works are evil. Jesus came as light into the world, and in both his person and his teaching, he exposed its evil. I see what it's saying, and I think I agree with that on a certain level, but I still feel like there's more going on here, right? His argument is simply like, when Jesus says, "My time has not yet come, but your time is always here," all they're saying is, Jesus is saying he has to choose his time very carefully and show up at a time when they're not going to try and kill him, but you can always go because nobody's trying to kill you, right? Well, I think that's true to an extent, but the always here piece kind of throws me off. Pontate. I don't know. I feel like there's a little more going on there, but this is certainly helpful. I'm not opposed at all, Cal Magic. I just think there might be a little bit more going on here than that. But I will put that in. This is Colin Cruz. Man, Colin Cruz wrote a commentary on the book twice. That's very interesting. EJ, I'm liking John, interpreted by early Christian and medieval commentators among the Gospels and Acts, the Bible Knowledge Commentary. Well, check it out. Are these three, EJ, are these three separate resources you're recommending? Or just one? All right. Vector said he clocked at 2:48. That's how long it took me to find the book. My bad. Vector says, "Man, I disagree with this commentary. That doesn't make sense that he's talking about the time he is meant to go to the festival. I'm opposed." I got you, Vector. Vector's a little stronger on it than me. I see. Frankel, if I could look up the verse in the commentary, New Testament use of the Old Testament, I would, but it's in a box. Well, mine is not in a box. Mine is right here. Boop. Thanks, Frankel. 3 separate resources. I thought so, EJ. So EJ is recommending John, interpreted by early Christians. Boop. I haven't referenced this resource yet, I don't think. So there's one. Great recommendation, EJ. Among the Gospels and Acts. Boom. That's another one I would not have referenced without your help. And then finally, one I would have referenced, the Bible Knowledge Commentary, which is excellent. Repeatedly impressed by the Bible Knowledge Commentary, especially for how old it is. Opens Logos to find a resource. Vector. Frankel was packing up. He has his in print. You know what's funny, Frankel, is I used to own many of these in print. This one included. I think I gave my print copy away, and then I just bought it in Logos. In hindsight, I wish I wouldn't have given it away because I'd put it in our church library. Today, if I still had these resources, I'd put it in our church library. But I digress. All right. Let's look at the commentary on the New Testament use of the Old Testament. Chapters 7 to 8 do not include any sign by Jesus, featuring instead 2 cycles of Jesus teaching at the Feast of Tabernacles. That's already relevant. This now is the 3rd trip of Jesus to Jerusalem, which finds Jesus spending 2 months in the Jewish capital from the Feast of Tabernacles to the Feast of Dedication. This is also relevant. So this is more historical background, but historical background is fantastic. Very, very helpful information. So we'll put this right here. Oh, no. We're going to put it up next to the Orthodox Study Bible because it's very similar. New Testament use, Old Testament. Boom. At this stage of Jesus' ministry, he is increasingly viewed within the matrix of messianic expectations. Was the coming one to emerge from a secret, mysterious beginning, or was he the known figure of Davidic descent? Did Jesus' miracles identify him as the Messiah? So there's lots of questions for these people. Oh! Quiglius, have you tried the middle click to open up books and resources? Did you message me on Discord? Somebody messaged me on Discord this. I think it was you. That rather than dragging and dropping, so you guys know I click and drag and drop, somebody told me if you middle click, it was Quiglius. Thank you. Somebody told me if you middle click, it just opens it. Let's try it. Thanks for reminding me. That didn't go. Middle click. I'm doing it. It's not going. Maybe it's because I use my mouse wheel. I can hear it going. Oh, maybe I have that feature turned off. Hold on. Because I have a lock button on my mouse that like locks it off. That way you don't accidentally click it. You know what I mean? Let's press that and then let's try in the middle click again. No, that ain't it. I'll need to mess with it. Because it's not working for me. Middle mouse click. Doesn't work for me, says Vector. Who is middle clicking? A question from a Mac user. Oh, what is middle clicking? Frankel doesn't even have access to middle click. What about this one? I have these two side buttons on my mouse. I can guarantee I'm not getting maximum utility out of the clicks I use. Yeah, so left click does open, which is more efficient than drag and drop. You know why I get used to dragging and dropping? Because sometimes I want to open the resource in a pane that I don't already have available. No, left click does open like this, but Quiglius, it was more than just it opens. The middle click, Quiglius was telling me it opens it in a special way that is like really handy, but I forgot what it is. Left click does open for me, but it doesn't do the special thing that Quiglius was talking about. I hadn't tried it yet, so anyway, let me know, Quiglius, if I'm there's certainly some user error going on here for me. So let me know what I need to do, and I'd be happy to try it out. All right. Chapter 7 and 8, the evangelist addresses these issues by showing Jesus' fulfillment of symbolism surrounding the Feast of Tabernacles, and by dealing with the representative questions regarding Jesus' identity. The narrative depicting Jesus' first teaching cycle in chapter 7 builds towards the climax of 730 to 738, where Jesus issues the invitation to all who are thirsty to come to him and drink. So the believers would, once the Spirit had been given, become sources of streams of living water. Thus, in keeping with the theme of tabernacles, with joy you will draw water from the wells of salvation, the prophetic vision of Isaiah 58:11 would be fulfilled. Interesting. Vector says, you can drag it from where it opens to a new panel if needed. You probably would save time with the post move, rather than move everything every time. I see. So instead of doing this every time, right, Vector is saying just click and then reposition it if you don't like where it's at. Yeah, that probably is faster. It probably is faster. And guys, I used to play Age of Empires and I used hotkeys, so I'm interested in getting the fastest approach. Makes a big difference. So, Tabernacles was celebrated from 15th to 21st Tishri, which fell on September or October after the grape harvest and 2 months prior to the dedication. The feast followed shortly after the Day of Atonement and marked the conclusion of the annual cycle of religious festivals that began with Passover and unleavened bread 6 months earlier. Originally a harvest festival, tabernacles or booths recalled God's provision for his people during the wilderness wanderings. Festivities lasted 7 days, culminating in an 8th day of special celebration and festive assembly. Owing to the daily solemn outpouring of water during the festival, tabernacles came to be associated with eschatological hopes. Immensely popular, it was simply called the feast by the Jews. And Josephus called it the greatest and holiest feast of the Jews. Isn't this fascinating? If you read this in context of what we have studied up until now, you have one of the most important festivals of all of the Jews, and Jesus is the fulfillment of it. And his brothers, who go to this feast all the time, it's like on their yearly calendar, can't even recognize Jesus for who he is. Instead, they're going to go celebrate the dead ritual rather than participating in the living identity of Christ himself right there. Arsenal says Age of Empires 2 was so good. Love that game. Love that game. Focus intensifies. Not wrong, Vector. Not wrong. Guys, when I used to play Age of Empires, I played Age of Empires a handful of times on stream, and I used to completely ignore chat the whole time. I could not focus on chat at all. I just had to play the game. It was really boring content to watch. Have you ever used cheat codes in Age of Empires 2 to get the sports car? What was it? I think the cheat code was, how do you turn this on? Something like that. I think that was the cheat code to get the Cobra car, and it drives around and like shoots guns at people. I think that was the code. So funny. Love it. Love it. Oh, what a good game. Yeah, it was such a good game. Yeah, we played it on the live stream. Do you guys want to watch it? Let's see. Am I at a good stopping point? Have we gone an hour? We've gone 52 minutes. That's so funny. Maybe we should watch it. Vector, can you post a video? Here, we'll watch it together. I'm 43, so it was really a game for my generation on PC. It was so good. And it's still got a huge following. It's still got a huge following, the game does. I'm not kidding. It's like really popular these days. Jess says, Pastor Tanner, no. This won't be long, Jess. We're gonna wrap up the stream with this. Quiglia says, I'll send you a message in Discord with a link to Logos hotkeys unless it's okay to share here. Yeah, send it to me for sure, Quiglius, because I think we have links turned off. Like, I'm not opposed to you sharing it in general, but I think they're just turned off, so it won't work. All right, let's watch this, and we won't watch the full highlights video, but we will watch the me playing Age of Empires piece. This was me playing marbles? Oh, this is funny, man. Gotta love the 24-hour stream. Oh, here it is. And Vector was just making fun of how focused I was in on the game. That's why he edited it this way. All right, let's see. Hopefully this isn't too loud. Look at me playing. That was me playing. So ridiculous. Oh, so ridiculous. You can see how fast I'm trying to play too. And again, Vector, maximum focus. Okay, that's enough. That's what happens though when you're trying to control your entire all your people. What a time to be, no doubt. Yes, total baby face too. Yeah, because I didn't grow out the beard as long. Oh man, that's funny. Vector, this for 2 hours. Did I play 2 hours of Age of Empires on that stream? That's so funny. That's so funny. Jess, I'm trying to forget this time in our life. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Oh, man. Arsenal says, hey, I've been wanting to come by and say hi. Do you stream every Monday at 7 Central? I wouldn't say 7 Central is consistent, but I do try to stream every Monday night. I think I've missed one Monday, and I think it was Memorial Day in like the last, 4 months. So we've been pretty consistent on Monday evenings. And usually I go anywhere from like an hour to 2. but it's usually just when I can get on. So 7 Central may not be exactly the time, but right around. This is usually when I'm wrapping up because the kids' bedtime is like in 15 minutes, so I try to help with bedtime and all that type of stuff. But anytime between now and like 2 hours earlier from now is kind of my ballpark for when I stream. Oh man, that's funny. That's really funny. Vector says, not that stream, but others. I see. There were other streams where I just played that game for 2 hours. That's hilarious. Oh man, it's good. It's good. You guys are great. Oh, those are the days. Those are the days. No, we've moved forward with our lives. All right, we need to reference, before we wrap up, I want to reference these 3 resources that were recommended. So first we've got John, interpreted by early Christian and medieval commentators. Now, there are a handful of resources like this, and they're like summaries of early church fathers, what they had to say on these topics. And this, I'm glad you brought this one to my attention because it's one that I don't reference that often, EJ. The one I usually reference is the ACCS. So let's actually, now I want to compare and contrast the ACCS with this one. So let's go ACCS, Ancient Christian Commentators on the Scriptures or whatever, and we'll do John. Okay. And let's compare these two. I'm very curious now. Okay, so same section, John 7, 1 to 13. So on 7:6, it has a quote from Augustine. Man, an extended quote. And Theodore of Mopsuestia. So they don't have a comment until verse 6, and it's these 2 authors. And then verse 8 is Chrysostom and Theodore of Mopsuestia and Cyril of Alexandria. Extensive quotes there. So let's just see, roughly speaking, man, their quotes are large. This is compared to this, right? So here you have an overview. So you have a short quote here from Cyril of Alexandria on verse 1, short quote from Chrysostom on verse 2, and Augustine and Cyril of Alexandria, short quote from Theodore of Mopsuestia on verse 3. So you can see this one it has more quotes, but they're a lot shorter. There's not like the large sections. See, this is where it's helpful to reference both. Because look, here they quote Augustine on verse 6, but look how short it is relative to this one. This one has a much longer quote from Augustine, this whole section. And then not only that, they quote Theodore of Mopsuestia here, and this one doesn't even quote them at all. Now, this has verse 7, but if you go down to verse 8, we have Apollinarius, Chrysostom, and Augustine. But here we have Chrysostom, a huge quote, Theodore of Mopsuestia again, Cyril of Alexandria. All of those, compared to these 3, much shorter. So I would say, I didn't know this before, but EJ recommending this resource, I would say you want to reference both. You want to reference the ACCS because it gives you more like individual comments from individual authors, but then you also want to reference these ones, the by early Christian and medieval commentators, because they're larger. They're much larger quotes, and they give you more context. Very powerful. Thanks for sharing that, EJ. That's nice. I appreciate that. And you can see here, like, typological. According to the voice of the Savior himself, God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth. Being spirit, he would naturally delight in spiritual honors and offerings, which are also seen typologically in the commands of the law, the sacrifices of both oxen and sheep, and especially the appointed sacrificial offerings of frankincense, fine wheat flour, wine, and olive oil. These are more visible forms indicate the variety of moral virtue needed in those who are worshiping in spirit. See, that is very powerful. You don't get this type of typological interpretation these days. Cyril knows what's up. All right, let's reference this one now. And this, I think, among the Gospels and Acts. Peter Ainsley. I don't think I know him very well. Let's see what he has to say. Let's see, the request of his half-brothers, James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas, were his half-brothers, who did not at that time believe that he is the Messiah, and even sneered at him, although after his resurrection they did believe. Their request was a rebuke to Jesus for staying out of Judea, which was the center of religious worship, and also it was a challenge to Jesus to put himself to test before the public, and so was a repetition of the second temptation suggested by Satan in a more subtle form. Faith is based upon that which is not seen with the physical eye. That's a powerful comment. Peter Ainsley. Put this in our notes. Yeah, good references given to us. Thank you, EJ. Very nice. Boom. It appears to many that Christ should have come long before he did, but we are told that he came in the fullness of time, the time that divine wisdom had appointed. And so his manifestation to the public was not to be regulated by human policy, but likewise by divine wisdom. At the proper time, he told his apostles of his coming passion, the public of his messiahship. In his death, he showed the Father's love for the lost race, and in his resurrection, the Father's power over sin and death. On his return to the earth, he will reveal himself to all. Such was his established program. But with his half-brothers, it was different, and it was for the whole human race. Their time was always ready. For being lost, they should have been seeking salvation. Today is the gospel time. See, he takes a little bit different approach on that verse that I said. I think there's more going on here. He says, with all the human race, their time is always ready for being lost. They should be seeking salvation. So he makes it a eschatological impetus, right? Like you need to believe. You need to have faith, right? Yeah, cool. All right. I think we've now been going an hour. We have. So this is a good time to wrap up. Thanks for those resource recommendations. I would not have referenced them otherwise. So I appreciate that very, very much. And yeah, should be able to get a video up sometime this week. And we have an announcement for the channel as well that will hopefully get up soon for you guys. And so just trying to clarify some of what we're trying to do here on YouTube, here online. And yeah, I think it'd be helpful. It's nothing big or crazy. Just like I said, some clarification. We're still fairly early into this online ministry thing. If you look, our YouTube channel's 4 years old, right? And you can see our stream is about 4 years old, roughly same time frame. So anyway, we'll have some information, hopefully available to you guys, to post sometime this week. So, but also we posted today's video, right? Which is pretty cool. We don't post videos on Monday very often, not very often at all. Let's see. Guys are just chatting. Arsenal says, I want to start reading some more commentaries. I have a bachelor's degree in practical ministry, but the school I attended didn't steer us towards commentaries very often. What commentary or commentaries would you recommend for someone like me? Depends on what you want to get out of them, Arsenal. Are you looking to read like devotionally, like just to get your heart engaged? Because there are commentaries that are really good from like a devotional perspective. Do you want to read something like really heavy and meaty, like exegesis? Like you really want to dig into the text on a word-by-word basis? Then I would give entirely different recommendations. So are you looking more for historical background? There are lots of different commentaries. Exegesis. Okay. Well, I will give you some series that you might want to look into. Okay. My favorite, maybe not my favorite, but I really like the Exegetical Summary series. These are put out by SIL. Yeah, and there you go. Vector's linking you to some videos I've done on this topic. So that video will definitely help you out. But the SIL series I really like. You almost can never go wrong. He did an intro to commentary, so you definitely want to reference that intro. I like the Pillar commentary series. I think they're really good. And they're exegesis, but they're accessible. Now, if you want to get a little more in-depth, the NICNT series is good, and they have the NICOT series as well. If you want really in-depth exegesis, the Word Biblical Commentary series is really good. And I would also reference, a good accessible one is Tyndale. And Tyndale is cheaper overall. The Tyndale Commentary series is pretty good. Also did a few deep dives on a couple. That's right. I do have a lot of content on our YouTube channel on this topic. So hopefully that'll help you out. But that's a good start. That's a really good start. Oh, the Baker Exegetical series is really good. BECNT. Some of those commentaries are best in class. BECNT. So that should get you going. The exegetical guides are also really helpful. These are put out, I think, by Kregel. I'm not sure. Exegetical Guide to the such and such book or whatever. Those will get you started. Blackwell I like, but they're not as exegetical. Blackwell, they're a mixed bag. I do like them, but they're a bit of a mixed bag. I'm noting all of this. Thank you all. Absolutely, Arsenal. Well, enjoy. Hey, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for coming to the stream. I got to wrap up. I'm going to record a vlog real quick. If you're interested in our vlogs, please consider supporting us on Patreon. I think it's the $5 level, or maybe it's the $10 level and up that you get access to the vlogs. I do a vlog a week, and then we post those on there, and it's just some of my thoughts. And like I said, look out for some announcements here on the YouTube channel. Like I said, just trying to clarify some things, but I appreciate all your love and support. Love streaming, love hanging out with you guys, and you guys always point me in the right direction on some stuff as well. If you're interested in hearing me preach this sermon, check out our church YouTube channel. It's FBC Leadville, so check that out, and you will see me preach this live on Sunday if you so choose. Appreciate you all very much. Have a great week. Take care. God bless.